Hello, welcome to the History of Diving Museum. Nobody on Zoom knows that we've all been here for 2 hours doing a very fantastic art exhibit opening. So thank you for coming to the History of Diving Museum. My name is Lisa Mangili. I'm the executive director. I would like to thank everybody who is here and present. I would like to thank everybody who is on Zoom and a lot of our members, a lot of people that don't live in the area or traveling to the area or logged in through Zoom. We also record it and we'll be posting it probably in the next day or two on Zoom so we can share it with the community and for those that couldn't be here tonight. So that being said, if you're on Zoom, let us know where you are and how many people are with you. We appreciate that. We do write grants and a lot of it is on outreach. And now they also count outreach when we do virtual programming. So thank you very much. For those of you, this is the first time you've ever been to the History of Diving Museum? Wow. Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you very much. Between the art opening and Reef, this is why we collaborate together. So bringing new community into to learning about the environment and what's going on around here. We want to thank especially our sponsors. The Monroe County Tourist Development Council helped us through funding to put on the exhibit and advertise for the exhibit. We've got funding through various different grants, and then we've collaborated with a lot of other nonprofits and partners who have helped us to have educational outreach components to an amazing art exhibit that has student work from 8 different schools from Key Largo all the way to Key West. Wow. So we're really happy that the Monroe County School Board has been a great collaborator and partner. They've talked to the art teachers. The Art Guild of the Purple Isles, Diane, and her team have put together lesson plans. We get art supplies and we are able to collaborate and get involvement with the schools that way. So we want to thank all of those people. After the opening tonight, actually, Julia is going to be doing a guided tour this weekend. And it's going to be through the exhibits as well as some additional information about the Dive into Art, Fantastic Fish of Florida. We also have on Saturday the 8th, Dive into Art and Music, the tribute concert with Rainbow Full of Sound. For those of you that are online or for those of you that are here, we encourage you to get your tickets online and be part of that. And then also in March, we have a Vintage Dive Day coming up, which is going to be March 8th. And people will be able to dive with certified divers will be able to dive with double hose regulators. We're going to have a Mark V dive demonstration in the big hard hat, Carl Bashir type equipment. And we'll also be doing demonstrations with open bottom diving hoods and let people see the whole gamut of vintage diving. So even if you're not a diver, you can come out and watch from the surface and see, some of the old Mike Nelson and Old Navy diving gear. So we encourage you to be part of that. Next month, we have Georgianne and Mike Watcher, who are going to be coming down, and they're going to be, they're snowbirds from Michigan. They're historians. They've surveyed over, thousands of wrecks, but they actually have 360 GPS shipwrecks that were undiscovered before. They've written books, and they're going to be our speaker next month. Which brings us to tonight. So tonight we have Reef, which is Reef Environmental Education Foundation. Yes. Headquartered in Key Largo. They're going to be talking to us. For those of you that are divers, it's actually one of the ways that I got more involved in the Keys by doing your citizen science and your fish IDs and driving down from Miami to attend your Fish and Friends. And that just kind of helped build a relationship. And what better group to kick off our Dive into Art and Music, Dive into Art, Fantastic Fish of Florida exhibit. So you can tell us more about that citizen science, how it launched, where it's going, and how you in the room can get involved, whether you're a diver or not. That's right. All right. So thank you. If you have any questions on Zoom, type it into the chat. If you have any questions, would you prefer them to be throughout the presentation or at the end?
I think probably at the end.
Okay.
Yeah. So
right.
unless it's like so urgent that you need answers right
I think
away.
you might forget it. Go ahead.
Yeah. But we'll go with whatever.
Yeah.
All right, and then if somebody does ask a question in the audience, just please repeat it so the
Yes.
people on virtually
Got it.
can participate. Okay, thank you enough for me.
Hi, everybody. It's a true pleasure to be here for the first Immerse Yourself presentation in 2025, and especially on the evening when the art show is opening. If you haven't had a chance to go over there and look at it yet, it's going to blow your mind. All the fish that are over there. And Reef is about fish, as you'll learn if you don't already know. So it's a great, timely, perfect connection for us to be here. The title of our talk is Fish by Fish, Local Action, Global Impact for Marine Conservation. My name is Jill Kuehnert. I'm the campus director for Reef Environmental Education Foundation here in Key Largo, Florida. And my colleague, Michaela Peterson, is also going to be presenting with me tonight. And we're going to just kind of tag team it a little bit. Neither one of us has ever given this particular talk before. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. And we want you to know that by the end of this talk, you will be able to describe some small steps that you can take to add up to sustainable change. I think sometimes, particularly around the first of the year, we're making New Year's resolutions. We're like, this is the year I'm going to do something big. We want to encourage you and give you some tools that will take you small steps that will definitely add up to improving the protection for our ocean. So the first question, just to get to know, we see some very familiar faces here in the audience, but just so we know and online, what's your relationship to the ocean? So I want you to put your hand up if you are in fact a scuba diver. Okay, that's not, keep them up. If you have to hold up your hand, it's all right, but that's a lot. Keep them up if your hand's not already up, but you're a snorkeler. Yeah, or you like fishing, you like boats, you like swimming in the ocean. You like eating seafood. You breathe the air that is cycled through. All right, now we got everybody. That's great. In fact, all of us have a relationship to the ocean. It's all different, but some of us have some things in common. So I want you to be there. Just keep that in mind as your own personal perspective as we go through it. Introducing myself, as I said, I'm the campus director at Key Largo Reef Environmental Education Foundation campus. But my big story with the ocean started when I became a scuba diver. This is my husband, Glenn. He's sitting right over there. The very first conversation I ever had with that man was about scuba diving. And I was not a diver at that point. We were both living in Singapore, and we're lucky enough to be able to dive all over Asia Pacific. You can see how new and shiny my wetsuit is. It didn't matter. I think we're still sharing that sweatsuit with some interns and fellows. Moving around a bit, as have we. Then when we moved here to the Florida Keys about 7 years ago, we started our own scuba diving charter business called Lucky Fish Scuba. We ran it as a private charter for 5 years out of Key Largo. And I had a very different relationship with the ocean then. Then I was trying to encourage and make sure people had a great time when they came here to go diving or snorkeling with us, and had a lot of fun with that business. Now I'm at Reef. I am a fish surveyor, and I'll talk about what that means. But it's been a real pleasure to take this role with Reef. My job as campus director involves looking after the people that work on our campus here in Key Largo. About half of our staff are resident here in the Keys and interns. And looking after the property, we have a couple of acres around mile marker 98 in the median, and we'll talk some more about that. And also to be a real connection with the community. And this is, I hope you can tell, one of my favorite things to do is to talk about the ocean and our community and how we can build it together. I was going to put a third picture up here that had Glenn in it, but I thought maybe you get the wrong idea. That's why it's just me there, although those are his fins in the back of the picture. He always wears 2 different colored fins, so I'm very grateful for his support through all of this. And now, Michaela, why don't you?
All right.
Should I take this?
Okay.
Great. Sorry.
So, hi, my name is Michaela Peterson. I am the new director of education for Reef. I am new on campus. I just moved here in October. So I'm also new to Florida. I moved here from Seattle, Washington. But my background is I grew up in Montana, so I love the snow still. Except that will wear off at some point. And I love the mountains, but honestly, I really didn't spend any time near the ocean as a kid. I was a mountain kid. I was horseback riding and doing all of those things. However, I was lucky enough to have a mother who was Australian, and so I would have to go back, and visit her family every 2 to 3 years. And when I was 12, we went to the Great Barrier Reef, and we went snorkeling. And my family weren't big ocean people, so everybody's snorkeling, and they were quite worried. And I saw this amazing fish, like it was incredible. It was bright blue. I think it was probably an emperor juvenile, but it had the bright blue stripes, and it was moving. And so I followed that fish, and my family was beside themselves. They could not find me. They didn't know where I had gone. They were sure I had been eaten by a shark. They're still sure I'm going to get eaten by but I was hooked at that point. I was hooked about all things ocean. I would dream about breathing underwater. But I too did not start scuba diving until I met this gentleman, who is now my husband. And when I met him, he was a scuba diver, but he had only scuba dived at that point in the Red Sea. So all the stories I heard were of amazing fishes and incredible wrecks and warm water. But because of him, I became a certified scuba diver. And then my life changed forever. I ended up getting involved with Reef in about 2011. And now I am equal parts ocean and mountain. I love them both. I am not, so we had a speaker last night at Reef. I would like to point out that while I have one finger right there, I am not touching any coral. And if you know anything about Reef, you know that we look for the tiny things. Often when you start to learn all the fishes, they are great, but seeing those blennies that you've never seen before is really a thrill. So my new role, I am helping to grow our education department. So we are in fact the Reef Environmental Education Foundation. I will tell you a lot during this talk about the discovery programs and the expeditions that we run, our outreach, and really the ways that we try to get people involved in those small steps that make big changes.
As I mentioned, we want you to walk out of here with some small things that you can do to help support the ocean. But our big question at Reef really is this, to help talk about what Reef is doing here and around the world to protect the oceans and how many people can be part of it. We are one part of this world. We have reef regions around the world where we do fish surveys. It's a big world. It feels like there are big challenges when it comes to marine conservation, but we really want to be proactive and positive about how we're tackling those things. So we're here at the History of Diving Museum. I dug a photo out of the archives. I think these faces will be beloved and familiar to some people. It's a photo of our founders, Paul Heumann on the left side of the photo and Ned Deloche on the right-hand side, flanking the very beautiful and wonderful Anna Deloche, who's a member of the Women's Diving Hall of Fame, as is Amy Slate right up here, and many wonderful people. So these were just regular people who loved the ocean, who loved diving together. They were friends. They had day jobs. Paul was a lawyer and Ned was a teacher. But they took pictures. They pointed out cool spots for people. They wanted to help people of all ages learn to really appreciate the ocean, and they wanted to contribute. They wanted that enjoyment to also contribute to protecting what they loved. So they started some projects. This is an abridged version of the history. How many people might have this book? Yes. So one of their little projects was creating the world's first real field guide to fishes of the reefs, not only here in the Florida, Caribbean, the Bahamas, but around the world. Another one of their projects was the field survey projects, which we'll talk about in a minute. But then forming Reef Environmental Education Foundation was the reason that we're here tonight talking to you about this. Very much a mission of enthusiasm, positivity, taking small steps to protect the ocean. And that's the legacy we're still living into. As we mentioned, Reef, I'm not going to keep saying all 4 long words. We can say Reef now, you know what it stands for. We call ourselves an organization of divers and marine enthusiasts, not just scuba divers, but who are committed to ocean conservation. We have our physical headquarters here in Key Largo, Florida, and we have over 85,000 members around the world. So over the 30 years that the organization has been in existence, we've really brought in and connected with a lot of people around the world. This is a photo of our current facility. It's the oldest building in the Upper Keys that's still in its original location. I'm told 1913 or thereabouts was a farmer's cottage, and the room next to it is where we do our Fish and Friends presentation last night. And we're expanding that space. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But I want to get into the first kind of part of this talk, which is about the Volunteer Fish Survey Project and why we think it's such a great example of taking small steps to have big impacts on marine conservation. We call it diving that counts. Get it? Counts. Because what we're doing is counting fish. It began in 1993, and Amy was telling me earlier she was on some of those very original dives. The very first fish survey trip with prototypes of the slates and all of those kinds of things, I suppose. But 30 years later now, we are still using a very simple way of helping divers and snorkelers record the fish that they see while they're underwater and making it available to scientists to improve sustainability. So how does all that happen? What does it mean to survey? This is a slide from a talk that we give every Thursday morning at John Pennekamp State Park Visitor Center at 11 a.m. So if you want a whole talk by one of our lovely interns or fellows about how to do a fish survey and fish ID, this is the kind of thing that you'll see. But basically you have a slate, underwater paper, and on one side, depending on what part of the world you're in, you'll have a special piece of waterproof paper that has fish families, and underneath it, the names of specific species that we see often here, in this case, in the Florida Keys. So it has, you don't have to know all of the fish off the top of your head. There's a list that you can choose from if you like. And we teach people to, I'll pass this around. This is what it looks like now. It's cool. We have a look at the fish to see what it is. And this art next door, you guys, is really amazing because you can tell the kids and all of the artists really look at the fish. You have to look at the fish to make art out of it. You have to look at the fish to know what it is. So in this case, when we do a fish ID talk, we help people identify the parts of the fish, what colors is it, where is it on the reef can give you a clue as to what kind of fish it is. And then you have the identification. That's the first part. The second part is the abundance. So we don't need to count every single fish. What we want to do is give scientists, ballpark is too general of a term, but a range of quantity that the fish are there, because that's how we can collect data for fisheries management and those kinds of things. So it's very simple. If you just see one fish, you put an S for single. If you see 2 to 10 fish, you put an F for few, 11 to 100, many. And if it's way more than you could ever count, then you put an A for abundant. So in this case, it's a blue striped grunt, and it's many. It's somewhere between 11 and 100 fish over there. If you look at that slate, I started to fill it in from next door. I'm like, I see some blue striped grunts here. I see some balloon fish that Cassandra did. And so once you start to notice what the fish are, it's like a scavenger hunt, and it's really a lot of fun. As I mentioned, we don't only do it here in the Florida Keys. These regions around the world, we have special paper for each one of these regions, because the fish are different here than they are where we are. And Michaela was telling me she's done a lot more surveys around the world than I have. But like even within some of these regions, there might be region-specific paper for those kinds of things. So this gives us a way to categorize and collect the information that we're already seeing, kind of like bird watching. We have any bird watchers in here? Yeah, so once you get hooked on, I'm told I'm not a bird watcher yet. But once you start to notice what they are, then you see them everywhere, and you look and you, oh, I know that bird. I know that fish. Is the same way we feel around the world. So in summary, why we do surveys, it gives a purpose to the diving. Some of us, if we've been diving for a long time, we're like, what's new? This is a new adventure to go on with the surveys. You can reach milestones with the number of surveys you've taken. So who is a fish surveyor in here? Raise your hand. Okay. How many surveys do you have, Paul? 1,500, ladies and gentlemen. Marta?
I have a little over it.
A little over 1,000. Anybody else in the multiple hundreds range? You got some super.
250, but not,
250, all right.
not.
So that's, maybe close to 3,000 surveys just from those three people. Lauralee, how many do you have?
Mine are not always from TWA because I dive
That's
all
fine,
over the world,
yeah.
but probably in the hundreds.
Yeah, hundreds, okay. So just in this room, we have a couple of people who've done hundreds or even over 1,000 surveys. So that adds up and it gives a sense of accomplishment. It's something to keep track of. We also, with the slates, when the information goes into our database, it's attached to the person so you can look at your life list. Like bird watchers have a life list of all the birds you've seen. You can have a list of all the fish that you've seen in your life. And it's fun. It's really fun. It's a lot of fun. And maybe the middle one is one of the important ones too, for the purposes of our talk tonight, being an advocate. You start to notice, hey, there's a fish here that doesn't belong here, like a lionfish. And I'm going to report that, and we're going to keep track of it, and we're going to keep track of the fish around it. Are they going up or going down? You become an advocate for keeping our ocean as it was meant to be without invasive species. And when populations start to decline, then we can ring a bell and try to get some action on endangered species. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Beyond fish surveys, we call all of this citizen science, meaning it's things that people can do without having a particular scientific background to contribute to scientific knowledge and advancement. So two other projects we have at Reef, one is called SMILE, that stands for Size Matters Innovative Length Estimates. And the other one is called Grouper Spotter, and both of them use cameras to collect information from photographs that can then be analyzed and used for science. So I have right here, I'm not going to pass this around. Lisa, maybe one day, maybe one day this will be in this museum. This is it's a new way of housing a TG6 camera. If you know, it's a basic point and shoot underwater camera that lots of people love. But it has a laser on the top of it, and when you get the laser in this special lens, but you put the laser on a fish of interest, and the project we're working on now is collecting these data measurements for fish of commercial interest fisheries like hogfish and the ones that are on the reef, grouper. And you take the photo with the laser, and the data that's in the image can be analyzed to provide that data about how big the fish is, how the dimensions of its size. So it's pretty easy to use, just as a normal housing, but it's got the laser on the front and the straps. So we are doing these dives here in the Keys. Marta and Paul have done some. Have you been on a SMILE dive yet? Yeah, raise your. Lots of people have. That's great. Jack and Christina here. Diana, our fellow, has been on some. It needs a little bit of training. It's better if you're a little bit of an advanced diver, but not super advanced, like 50 dives. Our next workshop training is February 15th, right here in the Keys. So please get in touch with us if that seems like it would be a fun thing to do to add on to your next dive here in the Keys. The second opportunity is a newer one and doesn't involve getting wet at all. We're training AI training. We're creating AI training data sets to be able to help us analyze these photos and these images faster and better. So we're looking for people who don't need a lot of technical skills or fish ID skills, but to help us go through some of the images and help train the artificial intelligence on how to take care of that. So there's a QR code there that'll take you to our website, otherwise reef.org, and you'll find those kind of opportunities. Small things that you can do to take a new step and contribute to ocean conservation. Here's a punchline. All of those small little things add up to huge impacts. We have had over 17,000 divers, starting with Amy, I guess. One reef survey. And over 10, just in 1 year, you guys, over 10,000 surveys were submitted last year. Add all those up, and there's over 300,000 surveys in the database, making it the world's largest database of marine life sightings. I mentioned how many reef members we have, but these scientific papers are the ones, over 100 of them, built on our data that have really been empowered by the work that it is work a little bit as volunteer divers to collect that information. Science that would either not be done or be much more difficult to do if it was only left to scientific divers to collect the data. We'll talk a little bit more about the lionfish. I just mentioned it a bit. Michaela's going to talk more about the Nassau grouper story as well, and the education program. So this is really a perfect segue to turn it over to you.
Awesome.
For the next part. You can either do that or this.
I'll do this, if I can find the right button, so.
Forward.
It's been a few months since I've taught. So, hi, everybody. As I said, let's see if this is the right button. There it is. So like I said, I've been diving with Reef since about 2011 and doing surveys with Reef. And I knew about the organization, I knew what it was called, but up until, relatively recently, I did not understand the full breadth of educational programs that we actually have here on campus. And I say relatively recently, I mean like 5 or 6 years ago, but I was stunned to find out really the number of students that we're serving, the ways that we are serving them, and the programs that we have available. Who here knows about our Reef education program at any? Okay, so quite a few of you do, great. I put this quote up because it is in fact what drives me, and I think it's what drives Reef. And I think it speaks to those small steps. So in the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we're taught. So I, up until last June, was a classroom teacher. I firmly believed in this, and now I have moved over to place-based education and growing programs. But this still is the piece that really drives me. So my main department is called Education and Outreach. And our outreach programs are really the places where we get people to realize who we are, what we do, and even if it's not about Reef, to get interested, right? So this is where you might see us at the Tortuga Music Festival. You might see us at trivia nights at the Florida Keys Brewing Company. You might hear about Fish and Friends and show up for a lecture and start to get engaged. But our outreach programs are really a powerful tool for us to connect with people where they are and see if we can get them back to where we are and basically set that common language and that common opportunity. Our outreach programs also include the Lionfish Derby. I actually sat in a lecture yesterday with Dr. Steve Giddings, and he pointed out, it was about the lionfish, and he pointed out that really the only thing so far that we have found that really works in terms of curtailing the numbers are these lionfish derbies or with spearfishing and free take, right? So if we make it a competition, people will be involved. So this year, I'm just want to plug really quickly, we have combined efforts. So we have moved our Lionfish Derby from August over to April. And we are merging the Lionfish Derby with our arts festival over Earth Day weekend. So this year it will be from the April 24th, when there's going to be a captain's meeting. And it will culminate in a large festival on April 27th on our campus, which is also a brand new thing. Usually we don't have it on our campus. But there will be food trucks, there will be beverages, there will be clearly the derby competition, but in addition to that, we will have lots of artists and lots of vendors. And again, this is meeting people where they're at, trying to get them involved, letting them hear about us and the work that we do, and our conservation partners. We have a lot of partners, many of whom are here. And so it's an opportunity to really get the community involved, because all of this is about relationships and all of it is about community. So hopefully we see you there. But we also have formal education programs. So we call our formal education programs discovery programs, and they really are about discovery. These are our classroom programs. I'm going to use the term classroom pretty loosely because they can be outside, they can be inside, and all kinds of things happen in there. We really focus on four main things in our discovery program. So we focus on our volunteer fish survey project, which is the project that Jill was talking about. So students can come in, they can briefly learn 20 fish, hopefully remember 2 of them. And they can do a dry survey in this beautiful space that we have on our campus that has this wraparound mural and try to identify fish right away. We also have programs that revolve around Florida ecology. And we also have programs that revolve around this really amazing story. So this is one of the projects that I'm working on right now, is to grow this curriculum. So who knows what this story is? Excellent. Who would like to say out loud? This is Rupert. So let's see, today is January 15th. We just had a full moon in January. This year, the big grouper aggregation is actually going to be in the full moon in February. That will be the large moon. This is what we call a little moon. But basically, a reef surveyor and employee of Reef was in Little Cayman, and there was an incredible number of Nassau grouper that had been taken. So much Nassau grouper, in fact, that they were rotting on the docks. And she was completely blown away. I've talked to her about it. She was just completely blown away that there were this many fish taken all at once, so many that the Caymanians couldn't eat them, even though it was a large part of their culture and a large part of their annual festivals and really an important part of their lives. And so that sort of hooked in her, and she started talking to the other people at Reef. And so they went back the next year to see what was going on. And what they found out was that there was this huge aggregation of grouper, and they were coming together only once per year to reproduce. Can you imagine only reproducing once per year? And so the fishermen knew where they were, and they were very proud of the ability to fish these aggregations. But unfortunately, at the point at which we started getting involved, there were fewer than 2,000 fish on that aggregation. They think that there was at some point, that they don't know the actual historical numbers, but by looking sort of at historical data, they think that there were well over 8,000 fish. In addition to that, they know that there were other aggregations around the Caymanian Islands, at least 3 other ones, but this was the only one that was still in existence. So the other 3 have been fished out completely. And so basically Reef stepped in with the help some other partners at Scripps, at SeaWorld, at Oregon State University, and they started working very closely with the Caymanian people in order to basically create policy, and their Department of the Environment, to create policy working with them and their cultural identity to come up with solutions. And as a result, the aggregation is now pretty close to 8,000. I think it's over 8,000 now. And it's even possible that one of the more close aggregations on Cayman Brac might be starting to draw some more fish. They're just not sure. There's lots and lots of studies still to be done, but this kind of story is the story that we want to tell in our educational world, right? We want to tell about conservation stories that work, especially ones that really focus on culture and technology. And so this is a great opportunity. Students can come to Reef and they can learn all about grouper moon. We're working on some more curriculum that will focus on the eDNA work that they're doing, that will focus on the microscopy part of it that they're doing, and really focus on the other technology that has made this incredibly successful. So we're growing our programs. The other program that we do are expeditions. So you can come and you can do those discovery programs if you wish to go kayaking or snorkeling or scuba diving or a glass bottom boat or go for a walk or whatever. We can do that. We will build a program that a group wants, and we call it an expedition. So here you can see some students who are actually doing some mangrove snorkeling. This is in Penacam. So we very thankfully get lots of students from Monroe County. Basically every single kid in Monroe County is seeing all of our curriculum or getting taught either the lionfish work. Ooh, I forgot to talk about the lionfish work. I'll talk about it in a second. Talking about the lionfish work, or they're learning about fish surveys, they're learning about fish behavior, they're learning about Florida ecology. And again, not just through us, but many local partners are helping to support that. With expeditions, people can come down from all over the United States and often do for anywhere from 1 to 5 days and get the full breadth of our curriculum, and we can design that for them. So this right here is really what we're focusing on growing and making sure that we are doing place-based education that really impacts students. And I have heard from students time and again how impactful this really is. One of the things I forgot to talk about is that we also do lionfish dissections. So that's a student favorite. So we will tell them the lionfish story. We do lionfish dissections. And if they want to, we can even make lionfish jewelry. So there's that. In addition to that, one of the efforts that we have made is called Oceans for All. So Oceans for All is a fund that we have. And the purpose of that fund is really to make sure that that everybody, no matter their ability, no matter what language they speak, no matter what age they are, have access to this amazing place that we are in and have access to the curriculum that we can provide. And so this has been a pretty incredible opportunity for us. Thanks, Martha. In addition, this fund has helped us bring in interns and give them a small stipend and some housing so that we aren't just drawing in people who can afford to be interns in the Florida Keys, that we're actually able to draw in people who otherwise might not have that opportunity to grow their education. So this is really important to us. So in addition to our education, in addition to our volunteer fish survey project, we are actually starting a new endeavor. I don't know if you all know about this or have heard about it. I think many of you have. But basically, right next to our building, we are building a for-purpose built Ocean Exploration Center for Marine Conservation. It is going to be free, so that's a big deal. And this building is really going to shine a light on what you can do, what people can do, what visitors can do to really support our oceans. And as it says here, connect people to oceans. It's really coming from multiple places. So when our founders, this was sort of one of Ned's dreams, and also the dreams of our current executive directors. But the ocean isn't just about the science that we do, it's also about the history of the people who were here, right? And the history of the people who were here. It's really, again, the science, but it's also about art. For many of us, we identify and think about and have a connection to the ocean purely through art or through art and other things, but that art piece is really, really important. So we are going to bring that into the building. And then of course, the educational piece. So this is what the building will look like. Right now, it's just a yellow building. It is right next to our campus. It's right off Bahama Road. But it's going to be a really amazing space. So this is what it's going to look like from the top. You can see over there is our original campus building. And in between is that shade garden and that sculpture garden that we currently have right now. So it'll be right there. This is an overview of it. So basically, you will walk in the front door and you will see this welcome area and reef survey area. And we get this brand new classroom. So, which is the exciting part for me. Students will be able to utilize everything in the Exploration Center in our programming, but also we will have the ability to really reach more audiences because we'll have some new technology and some state-of-the-art audiovisual equipment. This is a picture of when you enter. So I happen to know the person who's building all this. It happens to be, yes. Anyway, so basically there's going to be different reef types through here. So there will be like a standing reef type, there will be a patch reef, there will be places for kids to crawl under. We know that fish aren't always on the outside or high up in the water column. They're often, right? So we're often looking for those rusty gobies. We can see all those reef divers who are upside down. So there will be an opportunity to do a dry survey in here. There will be over 100 fish. Or, sorry, there will be 100 fish. So there's an opportunity for what we call a century dive. There will be a welcome, so the classroom is in the back. These are all just basic models of it, but there will be a big welcome center and a welcome area here telling everybody Reef's message, but also the message of the steps that you can take that are sustainable to support the ocean and the work that we do. This is the most fantastic thing to me. So these are grouper models of the Nassau grouper, and there will be a spawning aggregation model. There will be a reef shark there because currently, now that there are enough fish, reef sharks are actually at all of those. I mean, it's a meal right there, right? But we also have a grouper spotter model, so people will be able to use a grouper spotter, and it will say what individual that fish is based on basically its facial tag, its facial marks. Upstairs, there is going to be a space that will be able to be many things. So most of the time, it will have exhibits and activities upstairs. So we have some very cool interactive games, electronics. There will be a balcony out here where if you're a bird watcher, maybe you can see into the hardwood hammock that's right across from there. But there will also be the ability to turn it into a lecture space. It is where our Fish and Friends will be held with over 80 seats. And we're hoping that that will be a really great community center as well. So Reef has been in this community for such a long time, and it's an opportunity for us to serve the community even as the community has served us. There will also be meeting rooms in the back. So there will be a large conference room where scientists can meet, or educators can meet, or real science can be done. And I shouldn't say real science. I firmly believe that it's all science. And then over on this other wall, we will have rotating artists. So our first artist who's coming in is this woman. Cannot remember her last name, but Beatrice. She's a Miami artist, and she's doing some fantastic work with coral models, and she will be building. Well, it'll be a surprise. But it's going to be an amazing space and a great opportunity for us all. And now I'm going to give it over to Jill. But I would like to say that our grand opening is the day before Ocean Day. So it will be June 7th, 2025. I hear there are some other things going on in the Keys that day.
There always are.
There always are. But this is a really exciting opportunity and event. So we hope to see you there.
To sum her up, we wanted to share some common themes that we experience when we think about everything that we do at Reef and things that help us to act. Like we act when we know what we're doing matters, that it makes a difference. We feel good about what we're doing. We know what we're doing. We know what to do. I think Reef, and whether it's the field survey work or helping education go through step by step, is helping to add that sense of optimism and we can do it kind of spirit. When we remove barriers, as we're going to do with our new building, bring people in from up and down the Keys. I mean, you talk about fish, fish are in a certain part of the reef sometimes. They're in a place where, whether it's in a hole or on top of it, that's where their food source comes by. Currents. Currents are life. Without current, there's no life. We're in a really good spot in the Florida Keys current right there, mile marker 98, between the northbound and southbound. So we're very excited about being in a space where we can bring more people in to really experience what our ocean environment is about here and to see the outcome, to know that whatever they've done today, whatever you've done today by being here, by being part of our community, makes a difference. And so here's just in summary some ways to get involved. You can complete underwater surveys, events online and in person. Every month we have events in person on campus. We have additional events. We have a book club. We have Fish ID webinars. I have materials about those with me here. Volunteer at a local event and at the building. When we open the building, we're going to need a lot of volunteers and look for help there, not to take away from anybody who's already volunteering here at the diving museum. but we also need those people. Invasive species, if you see something, say something. If you see something that's not supposed to be there, help report it. And of course, supporting financially or donating to one of our many programs is always welcome. So I hope you will agree that Reef is doing amazing things here and around the world to protect the oceans, and you can be a part of it. I say thank you very much for your time and attention. If you have questions or comments, we've got time for discussion. If you make a comment or a question, I might repeat it so that the camera right up front here can catch it. So we'll start here.
So question, comment kind of a thing. As far as the Grouper Moon project, just a plug for, and you just mentioned the book group, which of course I'm bookie. So the Next Into the Blue is the name of the book club that you guys do, and it's the reef.org is doing Grouper Moon, the book called Grouper Moon, which is my understanding is how the Grouper Moon project came to be named because of this book by Cynthia Shaw. That's I don't quote me on it, but I think that's.
I actually don't know.
It's a fantastic book. It's for young adults, but it's if you want to know more about Grouper Moon and everything that you were describing, it's such a beautifully written book.
So the comment is a plug for a Reef's book club. It's the Blue by Laurel Lee. You've been to all the. She's been to all the book clubs. She's won a and there've been some amazing fiction, nonfiction, all kind of genres, and almost always we have the author present for this Grouper Moon book, which is the next selection. It was written and illustrated by the same woman, Cynthia Shaw, and she will be present part of that.
30th, January 30th.
January 30th.
And they're virtual.
And they're only virtual.
They're only
Don't
virtual,
come to.
But the books are real.
The books,
I forgot to add, so that gives me, I forgot to add, so one of the things that we've done with Grouper Moon and the way that we, Reef really worked hard to reach the Caymanian people was through education on Little Cayman. And part of that has resulted also in some live streaming that we do. So this year, we're very proud, we are going back to live streaming from the aggregation, weather dependent. And those live streams, I think they will be posted on our website because I cannot remember what days they are, but it's right around Valentine's Day, and I can't imagine something better than more. But we are working with the schools as well. We have put together activities for every day around there. But the live streams are really fun. They have
the divers have microphones as they're diving in the.
One does, and they have a larger mask with a microphone in it. The original ones that we used to use when we first tried to start this didn't work so well, and so the carbon dioxide was a little iffy. But I think we've resolved all of that. And it's pretty fun. It's pretty amazing to see. It's pretty incredible because we can all be there. So cool.
I saw a hand. I'll start with the back row and then we'll move up.
I just wanted to make a comment. My son works with the lobster and crab industry, and they catch a lot of lionfish in the traps. And they, of course, eliminate them. But in the past, for like a lot of times, my son will bring them home and we'll clean them and cook them and eat them for dinner. And when you threw the lionfish spines or whatever they're called in the water, nothing would touch. The sharks wouldn't get them or anything, but now the sharks are eating them.
Wow.
So I found that really interesting because, you know, they're evolving. And that's a really encouraging sign.
And Steve Giddings, like I said in his lecture yesterday, said in addition to that, I will actually probably tell Steve that, but that they are starting to observe grouper eating them more often. Which is very exciting. And another reason to save the grouper. So
So again, so the people on.
It's a good question. The comment was a family member who's in the crab and lobster business was finding lionfish in the traps and bringing them home, cooking them, eating. They're amazing to eat. And then, but when the spines were put back in the water, that nothing would touch it originally. And now we're observing that sharks and maybe some, sharks in particular are eating the spines. Is that what you said? Yeah. So it's just can they hear Michaela when she talks
Yes.
over there? Okay. So then you heard what Michaela responded to that. We have also done some research with traps at deeper depths, because one of the other observations or possibilities was that the lion, as they're being speared out of the recreational dive limits, maybe they were going deeper. And we know how lionfish love those structures like the traps. So there has been work that's been done by reef scientists and others to test that. Are the lionfish deeper? If there are there ways of removing them from those deeper depths? So, yeah, very good. Okay.
Send you all down the stairs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right here?
We often hear about, as an invasive species, we always hear about lionfish. But what are some other invasive species down here in the Keys?
So the question is, we always hear about lionfish when we talk about invasive species. What are other invasive species here in the Keys? I mean, the big one that comes to my mind, which is not a fish, is the iguana. Yeah. The iguanas are not native. There's invasive. Y'all help me out.
The soft coral.
Pythons are invasive. They don't belong here. They're
What's the name of the soft coral? Yes, yeah. It's not here yet, but people are keeping an eye on it because it's making its way through the Caribbean and it's causing a real problem. It's a soft coral.
It's like candy coral. If you want to go candy coral.
No other particular, no other particular fish.
Yes, there's the regal gamoon.
Regal
And what basically is a type of damselfish, and so it looks a lot like the round purpose.
Yeah, it's a regal down south. Yeah, exactly.
There's a fish called a regal demoiselle. I took French. I always, if I see a word that looks like French, I'm gonna say it. It's like a damselfish, but it's not exactly. It doesn't belong here, and we have been seeing. There've been more reports of it. I think Blue Heron Bridge, one of our staff found one there. And the thing is, so the difference between invasive and exotic is one that we teach on, right? So just because something is here, it doesn't belong here, doesn't necessarily mean it's invasive. It's only when we can observe that it is disrupting the natural environment, that is outcompeting natural inhabitants of the ecosystem, that we call it invasive, which is why the lionfish dissections are so dramatic, because we talk about the lionfish have voracious appetites. They eat and eat all day. We do a dissection, cut open the stomach, and you can see all the little fish inside that the lionfish have taken. So yeah, iguana's invasive. So regal demoiselle.
You have when you say you have a presentation on it, I saw, I was part of that, little seminar. And you have a whole library of seminars, and when you become a member of Reef, or maybe you don't have to be a member, you can go online and look up any one of those past, like fish and ours and all kinds of, it's like incredible education.
The comment is that an appreciation again from one of our members that Reef has a vast online library of fishinars and other webinars where we teach. They're mostly recordings of live education programs that we've done. And the one that's coming up in January is lookalikes for this particular area of the Florida Keys. So how to tell a jackknife from a spotted drum. A hi-hat. They look almost the same. So you have, this is the fascinating fun part of it. Is it this or is it that? And you can either take a picture and then go through the book, and then you can post it. There's a local fish watchers group on Facebook where people like, Jack, you can put your own fish photos up there and go like, help me out, guys. What is this? So, but there's webinars online where you can learn more about that. Lisa?
A question about the exotic or invasive species. It's thought that the lionfish is now in our area because it was released from the aquarium trade. On some of these other species, do they know what the origin of the infestation was or the introduction was?
Egypt.
problems.
Yeah.
Yeah, so interestingly, the Regal Damasol is invasive in the Gulf of Mexico, and it came over on oil rigs that had been dragged from that is the story I heard. But they had been pulled over from the Middle East, and it had brought
In
some
ballast water.
apparently. I don't but that was what I had heard. That's in the Gulf of Mexico. I don't know why the Regal Damasol are here, but because they aren't an aquarium fish. They're really cute, but they're not.
It's very specific to what the fish is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, in terms of, I guess, environmental stuff and in terms of, I guess, about a year or two ago, there was a lot of algae and the water is getting a little bit red. Do you have any comments in terms of analysis, what caused it, and God forbid there would be prevalence of that again? Do you have any, can shed any light on that?
We do not, I don't, but I will tell you, it's it affects water quality, affects the fish health, the diversity, all of those things, the abundance. We do have a big program once a year we call Reef Fest here in Key Largo, and we bring experts from adjacent scientific areas who are working on other aspects of the ecosystem that affect how the fish do. It was a couple of years ago. Do you remember who it was?
Brian LaPointe.
Brian LaPointe was the expert who came and spoke to our Reef Fest group about those issues. So that is online too, it's recorded.
Oh, so if you join the GBI, get access to the
Yeah.
database and look at that.
Even that talk that's on Zoom, on YouTube.
On YouTube,
So yeah, you
okay.
could, I'll make sure to.
He thought it was from all of the
Septic tanks.
septic tanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, there's so many people moving into the state every year, and it's increasing the amount of septic tanks and
It was
increasing the
very
amount.
interesting.
Oh, he was great.
Yeah.
Increasing the amount that's going into our water system and coming out, because, well, John Hallis at one point with the black band disease, he found that it was coming from fresh water that was coming down from Okeechobee.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's coming out on our reef.
So in case you can't hear us online, we're having some discussion about water quality and very dramatic changes in water quality and algae growth. And we at Reef we're not working on those issues specifically, but we are very interested to know about them and to know how the information we do collect about fish is related to that. So
Back to the invasive marine organisms, have you encountered any orange cup coral in the surveys?
So we don't, our surveys here in the TWA don't include invertebrates. They do in the Pacific Northwest. And that data has been used widely in lots of papers. We were able to track sea star wasting disease. But unfortunately here we don't, we have so many fish. That but does anybody know if the orange cup coral is?
I think it's here, but it's out on the deep wrecks. It hasn't made it
Yeah.
to the reef yet.
Yeah.
So I think it's on the Duane.
Oh,
Maybe Spiegel, yeah. But yeah, that was one thing I heard about, I think a year ago, and that be on the lookout for it. But it's the reef,
And that started about 90. I remember I was dining with John Hallis and Bill Harrigan, our first sanctuary manager, and we were going on the Duane, and we saw the students called on to the Sporia.
Okay.
Or to Backstreet, all these pronunciations. And then that afternoon, John gets an email from the Bahamas that they're seeing this particular soft coral this far north, whereas typically it would only be in the south. So
this is like, we are witnessing here the magic of paying attention and sharing information and asking questions. And where do we say,
So I was just gonna share a real short story about the tropicals and all of this. Again, I was at Reef and we got a call and it was a lawyer in Fort Lauderdale, and they're our biggest assets of people who are out on the water. And he says, I see an Indonesian triggerfish straight at the end of sunrise in the water. So I was part of the team that went up there, and we all went from the buoys and went each direction. we come back to the middle and we're saying, did you see it? Did you see it? No, no, did you? And I looked down and there's this bright colored thing. And I said, is that it? We found it. Yeah. So
did you remove it?
we tried. It got itself underneath a ledge and a triggerfish does this.
Yeah,
It
they
says,
are-
heck no, you ain't touching me. And so we had to go back with frost people and we got it out. And I think I just saw it in the frost still. It said, you know, Indonesian trigger, not supposed to be here.
Nice.
So I think they kept it, which is interesting.
Bonnie was just telling a very dramatic story of being on a React team to go find.
But back to people helping.
Right, people helping, people noticing, saying something and helping. Did you have
Yeah,
something?
would you talk about what happens when we turn our surveys in?
Mm.
I've only turned in
Yes.
one and I did get some feedback.
Okay. So, that's good. What happens, where's my slate? Is it still around here somewhere? So what happens, when you get back on land, you go, you look at your pictures. If you have a question, you ask a friend, you consult the book. And then you go online, you have your own account and you upload, you say, this is what species I saw and how many. And then you submit it. And we have experts who go through the data and
They do error checking,
they
so
do error checking. That's what we call it, error checking.
unbelievably, everything is error checked by hand still. So it's pretty impressive. I will say that our data is free and available and open data. So actually, and as a science classroom teacher, I used it quite often or tried to use it quite often. But that data, it then becomes part of this larger data set. And all of these are given, so the abundance are given basically a density score. So I can go in and look at what are the highest density fish that live on any specific dive site, any specific reef, any specific region. And then I can compare that because it's, I can look at dates for that. So I can pick out the dates that I want. Much easier if you put it in a different Excel file. But it goes into this larger data that people all over the world can access for projects. In fact, I was a classroom teacher, high school science teacher at Lincoln High School in Seattle. I was talking about the projects that I do with Reef. And one kid said, oh, my dad uses that data all the time. And he was not part of a published book, article, so I would have never known that. But there are people accessing that data all the time. So it becomes part of this larger data set.
But there are levels of expertise. If you've
Yes.
only done one, it could be perfectly correct what you put on there, but that data is going to be in a different category than Paul, who's done 1,000 surveys and has a different, he's taken some tests and, over time, there's a higher level of confidence that when he says he saw, abundant, what's a good one? Bluehead wrasse. Everybody sees that. Like if you said you saw
Abundant fairy basslets.
abundant fairy
There you go.
basslets here, you don't see fairy basslets here, like ever. So
Yeah.
you might, that's what you thought it was. So there, hopefully it was a gentle question back to you about your confidence and what it was. Do you have a photo?
Yeah, you have a photo.
So it's all part of the learning process that we want people to feel good about it. So I think we're at sorry,
There's two more.
Two
more questions.
When you find that there is a species of fish that's diminished in quantity, what are you doing about it? Or what can you do about it?
what can we do about it?
Besides, regulating, regulations, can you reintroduce that, more of those, and raise them, let them go, whatever?
So we aren't the policymakers, we're more of the data gatherers, but there are usually, that is a great question. That's where people are working really hard to figure out what works, right? So do you have fishing regulations? How do you protect the data? Yes.
Can I say?
Smile class and we've been too busy to volunteer for that. Are they still doing volunteers or the camera?
Yes. February 15th is the next workshop.
Oh, I did the workshop, but
Oh.
how do you get involved with volunteering for that?
There's a list. We'll help you make sure.
Yeah, we'll make sure you're on that
It's
email
a
list.
huge list of what you're saying, you don't want them to volunteer.
No,
No, we don't.
I'm What I'm saying is, I don't personally, the question was, Ally and Jen. If a person's taken the workshop, but they haven't been able to get out on like a real, like dive yet with the cameras, how do you, I think,
We did that after the workshop.
okay, but you want to go on like 4 dives, and we're working with Rainbow Reef with some other dive operators to try and get some more cameras on some of the more commercial boats so that people could have a chance to do it then, as well as you should be on a list of when opportunities come out to do the dive apart from the training workshop. And then those spaces do
And
fill
what
up
about
and
the trips? Are you gonna be doing them on the trips or no?
on the international trips.
Some of the
Is that
international
what you're
trips,
asking?
Okay, that,
Okay.
All right, 2 things. One is that they'll be around for a few minutes afterwards, so you can come forward and ask some questions. To get one back to Ann's question about the diminished, that's part of the aquaculture, and that's part of permitting for the sanctuary, where to make sure that there's licensed and approved fish collectors. So they try to, if angelfish are getting reduced, and to see and to make sure that people aren't harvesting them illegally and without, you know, the proper procedures and permits. And if somebody's a approved collector, that if I go to a particular reef and I get 2 angelfish, I can't go back to that area for so many months, and I have to go someplace else so they don't over harvest from a particular area. And that's some of the aquaculture things that you might learn about in the Fantastic Fish of Florida. So they will come and read some more. But anyway, I would like to thank you for coming. They volunteer their time. You do a lot with BPW, you do a lot with things in the community, and you know, we really appreciate you coming to the History of Diving Museum. We give both of you a yearly membership, so you too.
Yes.
Wait. You would have volunteered years ago. Yeah. But you know, we appreciate your time. We appreciate what you do for the community and what you have done for us tonight. So thank you very much. We have a lot of members that are here. We've got some board members that are here. I've got some new volunteers and new members in the back. Thank you very much. Laura Lee is another member and volunteer who helped tonight become such a success. Bonnie's put a lot of time. Susan's put a lot of time. So thank you very much. Like your diving volunteers, we also need volunteers to help. So we appreciate our members, we appreciate our volunteers, we appreciate our sponsors. Dan, Divers Alert Network, was another one who sponsored tonight, and who sponsored the exhibit. So that's something that not only benefits the History of Diving Museum, but also your diver community. So thank you, Divers Alert Network. Thank you for being here tonight. If you feel like staying around for a few minutes and helping put away chairs, that would be great. And we'll hopefully see you next month. We say don't drive by.
Dive in.